And now, coming to you from the Pensado Media Center, powered by Westlake Pro.
Mixing live stuff in 5.1, our three-time Grammy-winning guest from Canada will expound. We're leaving for NAMM this week. The lineup for our live series is seriously rocking. The Master Blaster has a new ITL in an essential area you may not think a lot about. It's showtime. You're at the place. It's Pensado's place. Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. That's my Chongor move in case you missed it. Hey, thanks for stopping by. It's going to be a fun show. I won't tell you how I know it's going to be a fun show, but it's still going to be a fun show. Herb?
Shall we get to it?
Let's do it.
Hey, everybody, our bags are packed. The Volkswagen is all gassed up. We bought a bunch of munchies, and we are trucking to NAMM right after today's taping. Hope to see you there. Yeah. If you can't make it, we'll give you reports and updates in the upcoming shows, so stay tuned for that stuff. Our fantastic partners, they'll be on the scene. They are the Blackbird Academy, Vintage King, Audio Technica, Aftermaster, Isotope, The Fab Factory, Recording Connection Studio 202 DC, and of course, our friends at Avid. Speaking of our friends at Avid, Dave and I will be posted up every day from noon to 1 p.m. doing Pensado's Place Live at the Avid Booth. That's Hall A, Booth 6400. Right when you walk into the door, look to your left, see that crowd of people? That's us. Be there. We got a line up for your behind, I am telling you. On Thursday, Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park. Friday, DJ Ali from Kendrick Lamar and Mike Dean from Kanye West. And on Saturday, the one and only Mike Elizondo. A little bit on Mike. He's produced and engineered from Dr. Dre to Maroon 5. From Eminem to Carrie Underwood, from Pink to Jay-Z. He shares a studio with Chris Lord-Alge. He is an A&R guy for Warner Brothers. And if you're a bass player, if you like bass players, if you want to meet a bass player, this is one badass bass playing beast.
Absolutely.
Isn't he?
Yeah, I've worked with him before. I made a record with him.
Amazing dude. I'm hearing from some birdies, and I'm going to see if Dave can confirm this. Some of our other friends may just stop through to check us out. Who are you hearing from?
Well, I talked to Manny. He might drop by, and I might. These guys are real busy, so they usually several people drop by, but...
I've heard from Ross. Tony Brown's camp reached out the other day.
Chris always drops by.
Chris usually drops by. I think a few folks will drop by. So added bonuses if you come by the Avid booth. We won't guarantee the last ones. We'll guarantee the first ones, but hang out. It'll be happening. But of course... we can't stop there, Dave.
You never do, my friend.
It would not be Pensadian, would it?
It'd be Herbian.
Okay, well, so this is Herbian. We're going to give out some Pro Tools 12s every day. We've got VIP passes to the all-new Pensado Media Center and Art Gallery, and it is such a beautiful place. It's a great place to hang. So you can see the show, see how it works behind the scenes, meet the team, get your makeup done, all that stuff. For the time at NAMM and for our shows, would highly advise you get there by 11:30 so you can get a seat. Do not be late.
Don't be late.
It gets packed up pretty quickly. And look, Dave and I would love to see you, take a flick with you, sign something. And most of all, thank you for your support. We are not anything without you, and this is our opportunity to shake your hand, give you a hug, and thank you for that.
True.
By the way, for those interested in education and making money, they go hand in hand. I want you to take this note. Stop by the Blackbird Academy booth, which is in Hall A, number 7123. That's Hall A, 7123. Ask for Karma Banstra. You've heard us talk about her a lot. That's our girl. Tell them that Dave and Herb sent you. She will give you a VIP pass for Pensado's Place for the Media Center, or take your email so we can send it to you. You'll find out all about their class availabilities in April and July. If you want a career in audio that pays well, whether it's in the studio or live or any other number of things, this is one of the best schools in the land. Get your buns to the Blackbird booth. See Karma. Tell her we sent you. Their placement service is ridiculous. They are amongst the best, if not the best, and we'll be there. The Master Blaster himself is going to be at some booths, and if you want to get some Dave love, they include McDSP Friday at 11, Audiodynamics Friday at 2, Waves with Manny American Friday at 3, Dave and I both will be at the Blackbird booth Saturday around 2 o'clock. We both present the Tech Awards Saturday night, and I'm sure in between we'll find our way to Isotope and UA and a whole bunch more. If you go to pensadosplace.tv, our schedule is there, the details, the booth numbers, and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you go. We want to see you at NAMM. Can we introduce the corner office guy?
Yes.
Okay. Well, he's a hairy, healthy Hungarian who likes hip-hop, and he goes by the name of... This thing, the touchdown pose. It's almost a Super Bowl. So I guess
his dad was an NFL referee.
Oh, okay, got it. Chongor, what's up, man?
Man, we're going down the route.
Did he start his speech this way with a touchdown thing?
He did. Sorry, Chongor, you're the best, man.
What if it's a safety and not a touchdown? What move does he make then? Well, that's good enough.
I don't know.
You excited about NAMM?
It's happening all over again. Get to see our old friends. Have a bunch of great guests this year. Can't ask for more.
It is going to be involved. You also get real excited about NAMM.
You know what? It's the best holiday of the year.
Yeah.
It's like Chongor said, my favorite thing is attaching a face, a name, and a personality to a piece of gear that I use. It just makes the gear more fun to know who made it and their personalities. It's hard for me to use gear that I don't like the people that made it, and it's, I would never use stolen gear because I'd look at it and I just couldn't mix. There's an attachment we have as engineers to the tools we use, and that's my favorite thing.
Oh, cool.
And like Chongor said, seeing my buddies from the East Coast.
It is a week of fun. You've got an ITL about something that most folks won't think about. Why don't you introduce that?
Well, as you know, I've been a little hard on particular
Yes, you have. You're a little
micro
resistant.
industry.
Yeah.
I just didn't understand the math. I didn't understand the science. And so you can watch me real time, and this is not edited. My opinions are not edited, and my responses are not edited. I was blown away by this. Check it out. Oh, shout out to Michael. I've been intensely curious and equally skeptical about power cables. Like, part of me didn't want it to work, and part of me did want it to work. And I'm going to solve that conundrum within myself today for you guys, and I want you to kind of play along and witness what's going on. The science behind this I thought was questionable at best. I was wrong. I know how power supplies work. I know how electricity works. I was wrong. So you're going to read a lot of stuff on the internet about power cables and what they can and can't do. My advice to you is to probably not pay too close attention to that. I got a little confused when I was cruising around trying to find some some information for today's show, and then I met Michael and Richard, and I am not a skeptic anymore. I'm not curious anymore. I'm figuring out how to get about 200 of these things in my studio right now. It definitely works, and we're going to explore that a little more. So we're going to do a little quick change here and come right back to you. So this is Michael from ESP, Essential Sound Products. I'm not going to lie to you. I was a little skeptical before this. And my buddy Richard and I had a couple of conversations, and he'll tell you I was a little skeptical, bordering on rude, because I got to protect you guys, right? But trying to figure out another way to say the F word, but shit, man, that was incredible. I mean, I'm expecting, like, I don't want to overhype it, guys, so dial some of this back. I'm just surprised because I was expecting to have to squint, close my eyes, sit in a sweet spot. But Eric Reicher's the owner of Echo Bar, the amazing place where I'm working right now. He's off to the side behind the camera, and he heard it easily. Leandro, my assistant, I wouldn't put too much faith in his abilities to hear things, but Leandro's, it's part of his training to make him feel funny. But Leandro, you heard it, right?
I heard it. It's incredible.
Because I was thinking, guys, a little bit of improvement, it's worth it. Like any advantage you gain, is worth it. But that's significant. So, Michael, Richard, hand me those little cables things again. I think they're over there.
Well, Dave, you're going from a power cord that was never designed, optimized at all for audio. It's just been around forever, and you plug it in, and lights come on, and don't think another thing about it, to a product that I spent the last 20 years working on to optimize
Tell us
for
your
audio
background a little
equipment.
bit. How'd you get so smart? Other than mom and dad.
Well,
You have a degree in engineering.
mechanical engineering, and I actually went to work not in audio, in automotive. Okay, so totally out of this area, but I always loved music and had a stereo system in that. But anyway, I bought a component that had a detachable power cord back in like 1990 or so, and you look at different components. Some would have the 18 gauge, some would have fatter cords and that. And this kind of gave me an opportunity to tinker, and you know how engineers are. You always want to tinker at things. And the first time that I tried it, I heard something different. And I didn't expect to hear anything different because there's no signal going through the power cord. So why should it be different? So the fact that it just intrigued me, and I started, just looking into it more. And once you start, like I got my physics books out and, start looking at just the basics in terms of the energy storage devices that are in any power supply or throughout the PC boards. And once you start looking at the relationship here, because the power cord, it's not like it's a separate device from the component. Once you plug it into the wall, it's a part of the whole circuit, a very important part. So I said, this is real fundamental stuff here, and there's a lot of opportunity to improve how those components work. So really what you're hearing is how good the equipment really is, because it's not being compromised by an inferior power cord. And that's how I look at it. It's not really the cord, it's how good the equipment really is.
So not to get too deep, a smaller wire gauge number or a bigger wire carries more current. So like a 20 gauge wire is a smaller diameter than a 12 gauge wire. I said that backwards.
Exactly. No, you're right. You're right. 12 gauge is a larger conductor than 20 gauge.
So you want the largest wire, smallest number, wire size, to carry a lot of current. But that increases the inductance.
Yeah, if you think in terms of resistance, you think bigger is better. But actually, because of impedance and because you're dealing with higher frequency range, you want that smaller conductor because it gets out of the way. However, now it's so small that just by its size, it's restrictive. So in order to kind of get the best of both, what the properties of that small conductor are, but they handle more current, we put multiple conductors in parallel to build capacity.
Right. And then you've got a 12 gauge.
Then bring them together at the
12?
end. Yeah, that's actually an oversized conductor, 12 gauge
for the
center.
for the ground.
Yep.
Now you mentioned higher frequencies. We all know 60 cycles is where the electricity is working at. When you say higher frequencies, are you talking about RFI that can get into the cable and
Well, actually, no. What I learned was that the signal that's being processed by the equipment actually amplitude modulates the incoming current. So it's kind of like you're driving your car and you need to go fast, you step on the gas, and you want to slow down, you pull off of it. And you want that reaction quickly. Well, that's what's happening with the current, especially in a high current device, but to some degree, all of them, because you're trying to refill the capacitors or the energy storage devices. And what I found is you really have a short time to do that. It's not like the entire cycle. It's really about 20%, give or take, of the cycle. The rest of the time, the equipment operates off the stored energy.
Gotcha.
So
Michael has promised me he'll put, give him a couple of days after you see this, but he's putting up some slides that you presented at 2011 AES, right?
AES, that's right. AES.
You guys know AES, it's an audio convention, and it's a bunch of smart guys with degrees and stuff. And he's got slides, a slideshow I want you to go check out on essentialsound.com.
That's right.
And essentialsound.com. And this kind of opened my eyes to and I was a little less skeptical because he's got actual test equipment readouts of what's going on, and you would say, well, why isn't it important that the electricity more important before it gets to this cable? Well, it turns out that this cable is a bottleneck. It's not that bad before it, and so you probably want to come from the wall to this. Now he's got a product that'll help you do that multiple times. A lot of people say, well, okay, great, that's wonderful, Dave, but can you measure the sound and see a visual from a test machine that the sound actually changed? Well, he's got slides of that. I saw them. I heard it. That's not a power supply I just listened to. It's my speakers I'm listening to, and it changed. And I would be shocked if it weren't provable with some technical equipment. And you've got those proof.
Actually,
they'll see it, right?
Yeah, there was actually a manufacturer, this guitar amplifier manufacturer, who bought a sample and advice of one of their artists, and they tried it, and they were skeptical, so they tested their own amplifier, and then sent me the data, and that's actually posted on our website as well.
Yeah, I saw the graphs.
It showed the graphs, and that the intermodulation distortion was reduced by 50%.
Is that good on a guitar? I like distortion on my guitars.
If you want it, you dial it up.
Where's the dial?
Well, if you're on the guitar amp, you could dial in the distortion.
Richard, come here. Okay. So, Richard.
Yes.
When we talked on the phone, I owe you an apology because I was not very polite.
It's all right.
And Richard works with Michael, helps him out a lot with R&D and testing things and letting guys like me know that I'm wrong. So I owe you an apology. So.
No problem.
Was I rude?
Not really.
Okay. Well, he and I both do the same thing for a living. Real good cat, very talented and gifted. But I want you to see him because I believed him, but I didn't believe him, and a little tiny piece of me didn't want this to work because I got a lot of gear. That's a lot of cables, even with my anticipated friends and family discount. Man, anything you want to share with the guys from a musician's perspective?
Well, from a musician's perspective and the independent producer especially, you're always trying to get any advantage that you can get, especially if you don't have the best of the best and they can't afford the best of the best. This here is just like anything else. Anything in the chain that's weak, you need to strengthen it if you can. And this is a great way if you have an inexpensive interface, you can't afford a Pro Tools HD rig. This really jumps the quality of your rig up.
Yeah, I don't think it turns it into an HD rig, but definitely makes it as good as it can be.
Makes it as good as it can be. And you need all those advantages in this business if you're going to.
Man, truer words were never spoken, So I just tried the cables on several pieces of outboard gear, and I got some interesting things to report to you. First, I tried it on the Clariphonic by Cush Audio, and I used this guy. Now this has some heft to it because it has to have it to do what it does. Now these two are, Michael, would you call these kind of entry level?
This is part of our Pro Series.
Affordable. Let's call it affordable.
Most affordable. Right.
Now I've been using these. I haven't even been using. He's got two more levels above this, and Richard has been telling me that they're noticeable too. So I want to stick with this because if this works, then we're all in good luck. But as you go up the food chain, it's not quite as dramatic, but it's hearable. So you want to get the best ones you can afford, and then you're gonna keep these forever. So it's a good investment. Now this and this are identical in terms of the insides and the guts. This just does what looks obvious. Now this doesn't have any filtering or what do they call it, UPS?
That's correct. Right. There's no transformers, capacitors, anything like that in there. There is surge protection, and that's it.
Okay, there is surge.
Right. But we basically, you can think of this as a power cord with 6 outlets. So if you have a device, say like a device that has the outboard transformer, wall ward, if you will, you can plug it into there, and you'll get most of the performance, even still going through the power cord from that wall.
Michael, don't take this the wrong way, buddy, but before I tested these myself, I would have been skeptical about the wall wart thing, but now I have to believe you. I mean, I just have to believe you because you've actually kind of under-promised and over-delivered so far, so I can't imagine with your personality and your background that you're not doing the same with wall warts.
Proof isn't tried.
So what did I hear on the Clariphonics? I put it on 8-Bit Tiger. I put it on some background vocals. And the reason I chose this song is I spent a lot of time mixing this song, and I really know what the intricacies of this mix. Now, my backgrounds had a pan to them. I like to pan my lower notes towards the middle and the higher notes towards the outside. And I thought it sounded amazing. And I love the Clariphonic on background vocals along with the Moog. Those are my two favorites. I could hear my panning better. There was a clarity. There was a I don't know where the phase relationship came from because there wasn't two things the same, but apparently everything has a phase relationship of some sort. Was that what I was hearing? A kind of clearing of the phase
absolutely.
A little bit?
Absolutely. Yes, that's what the chords are really intended to help do, is to, you could almost consider them a phase filter.
Mm-hmm.
So, once you can eliminate some of that phase distortion, the spatial qualities become clearer.
Yeah. One of the things,
left to right and front to back.
One of the things I like to do is I like my effects, like my delays, my reverbs, I like them to decay in time. So I want them to end on a beat or not. Like if I'm in a B section, sometimes I'll create a little tension by making them a little off. But I could hear really, it didn't change the timing for me, but it changed my ability to place those quicker.
Okay.
I heard the decays, I heard all of that go down to zero, and when it went down there was no noise in the quiet spots. Am I imagining that, or is that real?
Well, the chords are also shielded, and it's one of those things that in audio, you look at a lot of your other cables, most of them, I shouldn't say most of them, but a lot of them are shielded because we all know that you can pick up RF distortion, and so you ask yourself, why wouldn't a power chord be shielded as well? And there's actually a good answer, because if it's not executed right, it actually affects negatively the sound, because it exacerbates the carrier frequency, the second harmonic, which is the highest amplitude. So what we do is we space it away from those conductors so it doesn't interact with them, so you get the benefits of not picking up the RF without getting the negatives.
That's pretty cool in an urban environment with all the electronic signals that are in the air. So, Michael, I was a little curious about how it would work with kind of tube gear, So I tried it on my new favorite compressor, the 14B from Locomotive. It worked on tube gear too. One of the reasons we like tube gear is the way the responses, the way that it can round off edges and things, square waves, and it can actually add some color and some rich harmonics, some even harmonics, and it sounded incredible with that too. There again, I was on a monosource, and it just felt like all I had it on was the compressor on the vocal, and it just felt like I didn't have to hunt for the vocal in the mix, I know I'm asking.
Well,
is that possible?
It is, and from a power supply standpoint, tube gear is more demanding than solid state. Typically, internally, what they call the voltage rails tend to be a lot higher, so it's more sensitive to transient fluctuation. And what this does is it helps to keep them stable, so that, again, you can get the optimal performance out of the gear.
Sometimes I've read and I've tried not to keep my mic cables and my any cables that are carrying audio, particularly noise canceling cables, XLRs. I try not to keep them too neat. I like them to be kind of messy. That way they retard the RF a little bit.
Right.
do traditional power cables induce any extra noise into the process?
As a matter of fact, that's probably the thing that the power cable does that's the biggest offender, because a power cord, because it carries high current, has a pretty strong magnetic field around it. And if you've got your signal cables and the power cables in close proximity, you could add noise to your system just because of this radiation from the power cord. So what the shield does is it contains that so that you're not going to have that effect.
Now, you almost have two shields in a way, don't you?
Well, we do spiral the line and neutral conductors, and of course the spiraling is very similar to like a Cat5 cable, where that helps to reject RF as well.
Gotcha.
And then by having multiple conductors, the field is weaker, but also this right here is an inner jacket that spaces the shield away so you don't get the interaction for the negative effect in the base region.
Right.
Primarily.
It's not inducing it itself even, much less rejecting everything else.
Right.
Well, man, I tell you what, we've spoken on the phone, and you and I and Richard, and man, you're a cool guy, and I wanted to like you, but I did not want to like these that much. I don't want to oversell them or overhype the cables, but it really made a difference. I mean, not just from a physics perspective, but a musical perspective. And sometimes we lose sight of the fact that we're doing music, and this isn't a science project. It's a way to take these 12 notes that we all know and love and make them come out of a pair of speakers or headphones or earbuds and make you feel something, make you want to own it, make you want to dance to it, make you want to listen to it a million times. And these are tools that I see not just as a way to make things sound better, but to make things be better. And those are the things that excite me when I can get something that comes out of the speakers that makes me happy. Hopefully a few million other people will be happy too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Thank you very much for that.
And I'm not really that concerned with how I do it or what I do it with. What I'm concerned is that what comes out of those speakers just grabs you by the throat, picks you up, and slams you on the ground. That's what I want. I want my ballads to even be badass. And man, I'm telling you, we could talk after the show, right?
Definitely.
All right, man. Hey guys,
thanks very much.
Remember now, go to the website. Give them a couple of days to get these charts and graphs up, because if you're into science like I am and you enjoy physics, it's real and there's actual proof, test machines and stuff, real proof. But the proof just came out of my speakers, and if you think I'm lying, send me an email. We'll work it out. All right.
Oh yeah, these are little names. Tool, Peter Gabriel, Rush, Smashing Pumpkins, Muse, Martin Scorsese, just things that I think there's some promise in some of those bands and some of those directors
He's going to have a big career.
To get some success. Yeah, I think so. We welcome to our desk a fellow Canadian and a complete badass. Great to see you by Skype, David Bottrill. Welcome, David Bottrill by Skype. David!
Hey guys, nice to meet you. Thanks.
How are you, man?
You too.
I'm great. I'm real excited to be here.
Us too. David was very patient with me because we were going. NAMM throws our schedule off, and so we were going to book him afterwards and have him at the desk because he was going to be in town. And then it turned out to be Skype. And then what really worked out is that we could shoot it this week before NAMM and air it this week. So I appreciate your patience.
Thanks, man.
That's really cool. Fire away, DP.
Hey, David. Man, you've done so many big records, and what impressed me a lot and the most is the way you started. I'm a little jealous that you got to work at Grant Avenue and learn under Lanois, both of them, Daniel,
Amazing.
Of course. What surprised you the most that you thought was going to be one way before you went there, and after 11 years there, you left going, wow, I never knew that?
At Real World, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that what was the most exciting thing for me was really just being presented with musical styles and artistry that I never would have had the opportunity to experience if I hadn't been at Real World.
Yeah.
the thing that Peter does is really attract some of the most amazing musicians to him. And the things that they do in his presence and on his records is really unparalleled to anything else they usually do on their own, in my experience. I mean, musicians like Shankar or Tony Levin or Manu Katché, people like that, they just don't, they don't express themselves as well, it seems to me. Or, I mean, they do, they're all fantastic musicians without a doubt. And, things like Tony's work in King Crimson, that is also unparalleled. But something happens when they get next to Peter, and he's able to draw something out of people, I think, that is unique.
You know what's interesting about your point, Dave, is that when you listen to Peter Gabriel's music, there does feel, he feels like the hub of some really powerful spokes. And he always had a hybrid quality that made the music pop and rock and progressive and funky and all kinds of things, whichever way you wanted to go. Is that a fair sort of assessment of it?
I think so. Like I said, he draws the best out of people, but he's also a great sponge for musical influence. He loves to be inspired primarily by things he's never heard before, which is why he keeps his search open. And, when he meets a new musician, he just says, play what you're going to play, and then we work with that, edit it or not, depending on the performance that is done, and then Peter will generally use that and then build on that, and write in a certain way that he wouldn't have written had that performance not been there. So it's very much a collaborative experience in working with Peter.
Really amazing.
Which is not to say he's not absolutely autocratic in what he wants and what he wants at the end, of course, like most great artists.
I was going to say most greats are that way.
It feels to me like you travel more than just about any person on the planet. Are you still traveling as much as you used to?
I tried to stop for a little while, but these days it tends to be a lot cheaper to fly one guy than a whole band. I'm able to get some people to come to me, but in the wintertime, as Herb will attest, it's pretty cold up here. So,
pretty much, yeah.
I'm quite happy to go do an album in Athens.
Absolutely.
Or,
Absolutely.
Saint-Tropez or something like that.
One of the things that impresses me about you is that your concept about trying to make the listener available to find every instrument in the mix, but also to make every band member look good. So from the recording and tracking process, you focus so much on the individual musician and want to make sure that they get their moment in the sun. I forget the metaphor you used, but can you explain the importance of that and how that leads to a better end result?
Well, I think that essentially when musicians are learning how to play and hopefully avoiding the pitfalls of things like Pro Tools, which allow you to edit things too much, I really strive to essentially make every musician proud of what they've done. And that to me is the best thing, and one of the best responses I get from bands. The thing that makes me the most happy is when they come back to me at the end of the project and say, you know what, Dave, we really learned something from you on this, and I'm a better player as a result of working with you. And for me, that's as successful or even more so than having a hit record or it selling really well, because at least at that point, the musician has a chance to go on and improve themselves. And if we don't come up with a major hit on the thing they do at that time, then maybe down the road they will, as long as they're improving and learning from me when we make a record together.
And so in your process, depending on what hat you have on, producer or engineer, that becomes a constant through line in some of the decisions you make, getting that really good performance as a producer, and in the mix, making sure that there is the ability to, capture and have that person stand out in the mix, but yet still service the song?
Absolutely. I mean, the song is the paramount. But if you can feature somebody's parts and what they've done, that can really enhance the song and support the musician at the same time. That's really the goal. In engineering and recording somebody, really the engineer and producer's job at that point is to, create a space where the musician feels like they're going to be doing their best performance ever. So whether that's in the sound, whether that's in the environment, whether that's incense and candles, however you can do it to make that musician feel like they're really going to do the best work that they've ever done. And then when you get it into the mix, making sure that it has its moments, it serves the song, doesn't take over and it doesn't overshadow other things, but making sure that everybody has their moment in the song.
How do you go about getting a band or an individual musician to turn loose quick enough in the process so that you get something original and not work it to death and beat it to death? I recently, the last 4 or 5 years, I've conquered my struggle with commitment. Now I commit quite easily and my work is better for it. Turning loose of an idea and not making it go for an hour when it could, the second one was great. How do you instill that in the performer?
Well, I think, as I said, creating an environment where they feel strong, and then kind of accepting happy accidents and kind of catching them. If they're a great musician, you can kind of catch them off guard in certain things, whether it's a sonic change, whether it's an environment change, or just going up and pitching their butt, when they're playing, just to kind of give them something that they're not expecting. I mean, there was one situation, I don't know if I can tell stories on this.
You can.
Yeah,
But,
please. You're encouraged.
I was in Australia recording with Silverchair on their diorama record, and it was time for Daniel to do a solo on one of the songs, and I had the assistant, as he was about to start, we were running the tape up until, this is still tape, in fact, in those days, but we were running the tape, and as it was coming up, I had the assistant turn off the lights in the control room, and I got just an angle poised lamp, and came up and stuck it up between his legs and started flashing it all around as if he was kind of on stage. It's things like that are fun to do, keeps things light and airy in the studio, and, make them suddenly play in a slightly different way than they would have maybe had they just been the lights on and everybody, engineer and producer just sitting staring blankly at them, okay, impress me. If you get involved, if you do things like, as the musician's playing, get the assistant and the engineer and yourself to get percussion instruments and play along, just to give the vibe in the room, to kind of keep the energy up. And then, then when you get the great performance, and the room usually knows it. And I have no problem committing. And I heard a great statement once from a friend who said, "Decisions are your friends." And what that really means to me is that when you commit to things and you put them down and you don't try and keep too many options open, you build on top of that. And 100%. Sometimes maybe a wrong decision ends up being a happy accident for a later right decision.
Well, you just actually made a point that I have seen so many times, and we've talked about on this show so many times, that sometimes the character signature in a song is a mistake, or just letting the organic thing happen and it becomes the hook, or you just don't know. Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. In all creativity, and sometimes you have to have that environment and encourage that in the environment to have the accident happen. They're sort of planned accidents. You don't know what the accident's going to be, but at least you set up the environment so it can happen, and great stuff happens. Silliness on the show, probably about a year, maybe 2 years ago at AI, right before we would start our intro, I would slap Dave on the shoulder. And the first couple times he was like, "What the hell?" And our energy was different. And now when I don't do it, he'll tap me and say, "Man, slap me." So we start the show. So
even off the show.
Yeah, well, that I do for fun. But you're completely correct about that. I also find that is an example of guys like us who've been around for a minute, and you get that experience of working with other people, and you're able to keep some of what I call analog in a digital world. Don't you think that combination makes for better potential happy accidents?
Absolutely. I think you have to try and create every situation that whether it's a sudden balance change or a lighting change or some kind of environment change, to just keep, any great musician, will be able to adapt to a situation. And, they've been playing, often people have been playing long enough live that they'll get a suddenly different balance in their monitor, and then they'll play in a different way.
Yep.
To try and create these things where, you just do a wild track. And, I sometimes will go, if it's a guitar player, I'll go around to his pedal board while he's playing and just start hitting things while they're playing.
I love it.
Just give them a track and say, just try some stuff here, and then give them a track, start hitting pedals, and just see what happens. Sometimes, 90% of it is a mess. But like you say, it's that one moment that comes in. It's like, whoa, what was that? That was awesome. you know. So it's trying to keep a little bit off guard.
Yeah,
they can't be too comfortable.
Absolutely.
David, when I listen to your mixes, there's a lot of things that seem to be present and prevalent in all your mixes. And my favorite one is your use of the edges of the mix, the left and right, and then your commitment to dimension, not just panning width, but front to rear dimensions. Is that part of your philosophy? Is that something that you could do with a mix that you didn't record or track or produce? Or I think some of your records, like some of the Tool records, the Silverchair records, those records they could be a whole course in how to make a mix relate. And by the way, you don't do it to be doing it. You do it to sell the song and amplify everything about the process. That was a long question. Do you remember the first part?
Yeah.
Was it a question?
You hit it on the head right
It was
at the beginning.
it was an attempt to show my knowledge. That's all it was. But truly, you have a gift for that, and I want to learn how to do it myself.
Thank you. Well, Dave, your knowledge is vast, so I don't know how much I can add to it. But my philosophy is, when I'm mixing, is exactly as you said. It's not just the spatial width of it, but I really love to have it deep so that really you try and draw a listener in.
Yeah.
I learned some of that on the early Tool records, and you'll notice on the Anima record sometimes the vocal's quite quiet. And the idea was, and it was Adam and I were working on this together. The idea was that, if the listener's kind of bringing in, it's like, what do you say, what do you say? Yeah. Then all of a sudden he's facing into the mix, and the mix is kind of coming in and surrounding, and he becomes part of the depth of it.
Really
so
good
ever
point.
since, that, and even before, even on those, like the film soundtrack to The Last Temptation of Christ, again, the same thing. It was trying to create that third dimension front to back so that you get this feeling of it kind of being enveloping as opposed to just kind of black, straight up in front of your nose.
Are you using plugins or gear to do it, or are you using reverbs mostly, or EQ, or is it part of the recording process in the miking? Is it, or a combination of all the above?
It's all of the above. If I'm producing and recording something, then yes, there'll be distant, there'll be close mics, but I do try to work in a way that some things are up front and on your nose, and some things are distant. And sometimes when you're mixing with a band, the guy's saying, well, geez, my stuff's way back in the back there. It's like, yeah, but you can still hear it. It's still there. It's just providing that extra dimension. And when the moment is to be up front, then it will come up front. But having, in a way of having everything shine at the time and having the dimension, you have to have things more reverberant and further back, and some closer enough, and delays and reverbs and all those things, and even distortion. A certain kind of distortion can throw things back in.
Oh, I never thought about that. That's a headline.
Yeah.
Hey, it's interesting because I love the power of rock. Like, I'm the worst in my car, and people pull up. And they see this old black dude, and I am just rocking out heavy.
Is Pick Up the Pieces rock?
No, but it was classic. But part of it is, I'm thinking about what you said, David, because the intimacy part of rock records is oftentimes where you can feel the power the most. And in a weird thing, it's not necessarily louder, but it's just more.
It's those mid-range where the guitar's churning.
Yeah, man, and your head just starts to do this, and you can't let go. Now I have to go back and listen to everything. All right, David, you have changed my listening patterns now moving forward, and so I thank you for that.
Well, David, Herb just reminded me of something. Another thing about your records that I love is your commitment to groove, not precision, which is mechanical and non-musical, but your commitment to groove, and groove has nothing to do with precision. It takes kind of an advanced. You get to precision, and once you get to precision, you don't stop. The next train gets off at groove. How do you orchestrate that either in the mix or live? Is it just a function of rehearsing the musicians and all that sort of thing, or Tool is some of the most gifted musicians I know. They're great players, an all-star band. How do you do that?
Well, it is, you're right. A lot of it is rehearsing. I do a lot of pre-production with bands, and I get them playing as a band as much as possible so they can really lock together. When tracking, I really try to, as I say, do a lot of takes with drums and bass so that the feel and the energy is there right from the beginning, not manufactured later in Pro Tools. I will edit things in Pro Tools where they are egregiously out, but I try to keep the human feel as much as possible. I mean, you get musicians like Tool or a bass player like Tony Levin, who essentially is kind of behind the beat, but in the coolest possible way.
Yep.
He has, in the fat sort of rock end, it's got to be fat. It's got to be like slightly, your hips have got to kind of slightly scoop down.
There you go, brother. There you go.
You can't be sitting like this.
That's right.
It's got to be like this.
Yeah.
Like the old blues guys,
cool.
they told us that, how to do that. And, I'm just trying to channel that when I get a good hot rhythm section. And, it's either that or it's got to be that funk on the snare, the certain things that you can do with ghost notes and that. But it's got to all be there organically, because trying to manufacture it later is just a nightmare.
And see, it's just a long way of saying Canadians are funky. That's all.
Oh, hell no. The tundra, life in the tundra. That's when I think groove, I think tundra.
Well, yeah, but see.
Sorry, David. I'm from South Florida. I don't understand snow or tundra, and that's the last time I'm saying tundra.
We're further south than Minnesota down here.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Okay, this is just for me, so everybody else can tune out. What's your technique to learning a new room when you're going to a room that you've never used before? I send Bob Hodes in ahead of me to make it as comfortable as I can. What's your technique to master a new room within the time constraints of having to start an album that day?
Yeah,
or mix
which is
one that
really
day?
short. It's really short to try and do that. And for me, it's just reference. I play records I love. Play records, not just things that I've done, but just records I know. And listen to the room, listen to the speakers. But you know what? I also don't spend too much time doing that, because one thing I try to pride myself on is that not every record I make sounds exactly the same. And I like to kind of work with the constraints and the differences in the rooms that I'm in. Obviously, there are things that I will do that I like, that I'll want to kind of recreate in different sounds and different techniques that I have for getting those sounds. But I love the fact that studios have different sounds to them, rooms sound different, and creating things that still support the song and make the song as good as possible, but utilizing what's cool about the studio itself. So hopefully, over the years that I've worked, my records all sound reasonably good, but different. So I try not to get to know the room too much, because then I'll just do exactly what I've done before. We all fall into these habits. Yeah. So, learning it, doing a little reference, playing a few records, then okay, let's dive in.
And does the sound of the room affect your decision to EQ and compress to tape, or do you do that? Sorry,
if I don't know the room as well, then I'll be gentler on the EQ and compression when I'm recording. If I know the room, I'll know exactly what I want to do, because I can always go back and do it later. But you know what? When I'm in a room, if I'm in a studio, I tend to try to please my ears and ask the people around if they're engineers at that studio that know the room, and I say, look, what is this? How is this sounding? Is this as you would expect in this room? And don't blow smoke up my ass.
Right,
if I don't
right.
want you to lie to me, I want you to tell me the truth.
Absolutely. When you're producing, who is your engineer at that point in time?
I've got a few that I use around, that I've used over the years. I don't have anyone in particular that I use more than others, but I've worked with some fantastic ones. James Brown, I worked with, who works for the Foos a lot now. He did a Placebo record with me. He's fantastic. I work with him anytime. A guy here in Toronto, used to be my partner, Brian Moncars. He used to work with me a lot. Ryan McCambridge, he does some engineering for me. A lot of guys. I travel around a lot, and I tend to use people that are in the area, and then oversee it myself, because I kind of know how to do it myself. But when I'm working on a project, I try not to engineer too much, because it puts on a certain hat.
Yeah.
Start thinking about track count and disc space as opposed to musical performance and energy. So I try to get things set up and then hand off the nuts and bolts to a good guy, whoever that might be, and and then try and think of the music and work on performance with the artists.
Detail out the Rush relationship, where it started, how it morphed over time, and came up to this 5.1 live box set. And by the way, shout out to Ryan, who was very helpful in making all this relationship happen. But Rush and David Bottrill, talk to us about it.
Okay, well, the first meeting we ever had was actually for a record called Vapor Trails. This is back in 2003, 2004, and it was right after Neil had just gotten back into playing and after his sort of family tragedies that he had.
Yeah.
So they were working on this album. They were booking out a year at this little studio, and so we talked about maybe doing something together. Schedule-wise, it couldn't happen. I couldn't commit to a whole year or sort of an open-ended thing for them, and they wanted to have sort of more comfortable known people around so that there wasn't anybody added to the family at that point. So I didn't end up working on that record. But then curiously enough, a number of years later, they called me up and said, you know, we wanted to get this album remixed because you know, there was a sort of time period and things happened and it was louder than, you know, the sort of volume wars were at their height at the time. So, you know, they wanted to have another go at it. So I did that for them and they were very happy with that. And then subsequently they had got some old tapes from a '97 show that they played at the Molson Amphitheater. And they were doing they wanted some mixes done of about 10 songs of that in 5/1. So I did that for them. And then when they were going to do this final tour that they've just completed and said, oh, we want to record it, 2 shows in Toronto at the Air Canada Centre. And let's call Dave and get him in. So I came in and recorded that in the Livewire truck here in Toronto for 2 nights, and then mixed it at my little studio here.
Wow. And the experience of mixing in 5.1 and so on and so forth, what does it add to your toolkit? What do you have to be more aware of? What are some of the differences and the specialities of that?
Well, you know, I found in all the research that I did and all the DVDs that I got and had to listen to, and it's the Wild West out there. There seems to be no standard. Is it just vocals in the center? Is it not just vocals in the center? How much sub? How much LFE? You know, there's all these things to think about. And so, you know, I try to, my philosophy with live things is I want the listener to have a great audience experience. I don't want them up on stage with the band. So I'm not going to put direct sounds in back speakers.
What
I think,
a great thing, huh?
you know, I just want the sort of arena to surround them, to be part of it. Like even in the audience, some guys, you know, sharpening his ear, you know, if one of the mics has picked up something like that, that's fun to kind of have up there because that gives you that experience.
Right.
Hey, David, I was going to save this for batter's box, but can you give me a letter grade A, B, C, D on my Geddy Lee impression? And if it's not too high, I'll put it to rest. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Salesman.
Wow. Yeah, you need to go about an octave higher, I think.
Oh, man.
But here's the good news, David. You weren't here to watch that. Wow, that was the most painful thing. You know, Chongor, call off the paramedics because our team just called the paramedics based on this.
No, he does that face. I mean, I hate that line.
No,
I
he
hate
actually
that word.
does the
and
face.
Geddy's a great musician and everything, but salesman. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I know what you're talking about.
What song is that?
It's
Tom Sawyer?
Spirit of Radio.
It's not Tom Sawyer?
Spirit of Radio.
Oh, yeah.
Can you not do that again? Okay, cool.
Give me a letter grade.
F?
I'll give you B minus.
Oh, that's good. That's generous.
I'll work on it. I'll work on it next time I see you.
Canadians are very nice people. That's the thing about
Yeah, I was expecting a D plus.
Chongor, you are over in the corner office as the happy Hungarian. I know we got a bunch of questions. You got some for our guests?
We got some good questions. I'm still a little choked up by Dave's impression over
it wasn't the sound, it was his face. But anyways.
It's hard to do. Geddy Lee, like he said,
clearly it was hard
that
to
man
do.
can sing.
Clearly it was hard to do.
I was worried, but we got some good questions, so let's get it going. This first one touches on what you guys talked about from Angelo Casper. What were some of the biggest hurdles you ran into when mixing 5.1, and how did you fix them?
It was really at the beginning, the research that I needed to do to see what were protocols and what were standards. That really, for me, mixing in 5.1 is exciting because you just get an added dimension. So it was really a thrill. What was most exciting or most challenging was how much not to put in the back speakers and how much not to overdo it in the back. Because you just want to go crazy, but you've got to remain true to what the show was.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Chongor, you got another one?
Yep. From Oyvind Larson.
Oyvind? How did he spell Oyvind?
Oyvind.
Okay, cool. That's Oyvind.
How do you get your snares to be heard so clearly in the mix?
Ooh, great question.
And I mean, it depends on the instrument itself. I love a Black Beauty. That's a standard, obviously.
I love a Black Beauty too.
The most successful way to get a snare to sound great in a mix is by having a great player who really knows how to hit it and really knows how not only to go on but how to come off. There's a real difference in that, and being able to be clean and crisp. And, I mean, we can talk about parallel compression, we can talk about EQ and compression on the snare itself, but really the basis is if the musician is skilled at playing the instrument, it will be heard. I always maintain that the best sounds I've ever got only came because of the great musicians, not because of what I've done.
Talk about the technique of coming off of the snare. What happens?
It's really the cleanliness. It's like the going on has to be strong and precise. And if you look at, you know this, I mean, if you look at a great drummer's drum, the size of the hit's like a quarter, like really small around the ring. But it's just also not being lazy and letting it sit there for that sort of microsecond and dulling the sound of the snare. It's the being able to come off at the right amount of time, without letting it hang there, and being able to get the response off the drum as well as on the drum.
Would you say that the guys that play like this don't have that rebound as much as the guys that play like this? Have you noticed a difference? Like some of the guys like this have to work harder. They can sound better or as good, but that jazz underhanded technique seems to me not as rock and roll as to just beat the crap out of it.
No, you're absolutely
and get
right.
that rebound.
What you gain, I think, with the crosshand is a little maybe precision. You can do a lot more ghost notes, but what you lose is the power. There's very few people that can do it that way. Even Neil, Neil is arguably one of the best, certainly one of the best drummers in the world. And when he plays that way, there's a certain loss of power in what he does. There's articulation and there's clarity, but there's just not that balls.
Now, young sir, David's representing the Toronto Blue Jays. Are you ready to tee it up?
I am.
All righty, so here's batter's box. David, just don't be kind. Knock him right back at his block. David, you are...
Channel my inner Jose Bautista for you.
Oh, there you
Wow.
go. There you go. David P., fire away.
Bass.
Fat.
Nice.
Stereo bus.
Slightly conservative.
Nice.
Reverb.
Be careful.
De-essing.
Less necessary than it used to be.
Clarity.
Imperative.
Pedals.
Fun.
Guitars. More fun.
More fun, yeah.
You don't get points for that. No, you do, because you gave me a B-. Yeah,
Then
you
I'll
get a point.
say crunch.
I'll give you my point. Lead vocals.
Performance.
Overheads.
Clear.
Okay. I have to set this up. Bear with me. You can't say Neve, you can't say Pultec, you can't say Neumann, and you can't say Telefunken. And you can't say computer, dog, hard drive. If your studio caught fire, what piece of gear would you rescue?
None.
Wow.
That's the most original answer we've had in that space.
I give up. He won. The man won.
Yeah, he would take himself.
He gave me a B-.
You know what?
I love this man.
With as far as gear and as far as stuff, like, don't get me wrong, I love gear. I love working with stuff. But there's a certain thing that happens when you purge and you start again. And at the end of the day, these are tools.
True.
And the artistry is in the craftsman, not just in the tools.
Mm-hmm. Are you a guy who incorporates plugins a lot in what you do?
I do.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, I mix mostly in the box.
And the other side of it is education for those guys who are watching you, who are inspired by you, or inspired by our guests. What's your take on education? Important?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I do some guest lectures at the school called Metalworks here in Toronto.
Sure.
I try to, as much as you can. I think it's important that people who've been doing it for a while teach the next generation and give a little bit back. I do a mentoring thing for Metalworks for the student that does well in a certain area. I'll take them on and mentor them for a little while, and things like that. I think I suffer from the same Canadian self-consciousness of really thinking like, what can I possibly teach them? But of course, there is things I can teach them.
Without question. In fact, Dave, we should go up to Metalworks and meet some folks and
absolutely.
and come to the school. We do a lot of events.
Is that up in the tundra?
No, it's not actually. It's I can take you to the tundra once we go to the school.
Okay, I'll go if there's no tundra, and I'm not going to say that word again.
Come in the summer, Dave. Come in the summer.
There you go.
It's hot with mosquitoes.
Well, Dave, you can't complain. It's got to be one or the other, bro.
It's Canada. It's never. It's always one or the other.
Canada's wonderful.
It is.
We'll just Skype David in. I'll come up.
I love Toronto. I love Toronto and Vancouver.
John Gore will go with me too. We do a lot of educational things, David, and a lot of times we have panelists and stuff who will join us. So if you would be open to that request, we have a pretty aggressive schedule this year, and we have some discussions going on in Canada. Would you be open if we gave you a buzz?
Of course.
That would be absolutely phenomenal.
I'd be honored to.
Our time goes by so quick, it's just ridiculous. Before we wrap up, moving forward, what are you working on? What are you excited about? Where are you going? What you doing?
Well, coming down to NAMM.
There you go. And we'll see you there.
I've got a few things. The next thing might be in Australia with a band called Birds of Tokyo.
Nice.
We're talking now with them. Great manager, same manager as for Silverchair, actually, John Watson.
Cool.
Super guy.
Cool.
I've got some mixing things from a French band called Legere coming through. Lots and lots of little things. It was sort of quiet over Christmas, and now all of a sudden I'm swamped. So.
And you know what's really cool? I think that I've seen this happen with Dave in managing him. It seems to be the same with you. The variety of things that you work on in terms of their sort of musical genre or their geographical location, doesn't that keep you stimulated and keep you reaching and keep it fresh?
Man, I would be so bored if I did the same record over and over again.
Yeah.
I love doing different things. I did this great singer-songwriter from New York girl who was sort of, flowery hippie girl, and that was a lot of fun. And then straight into a Mudvayne record after that.
Yeah, there you go.
So, it's like you got to keep it fresh. I can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again because I would get lazy as anybody and just keep running over the same things. Every new artist that you work with teaches you something new, and the more diverse they are, the more interesting and new things you learn. That's really what you got to keep doing to keep yourself excited in this business.
We are so thankful that you graced our desk even by Skype. We would love to continue this conversation and do more. So upon a trip to LA or some of our segments like Into the Layer and so on and so forth, can we call you and get you involved and do more? We like to keep these conversations going. Once is never enough. You won't mind me stalking you for that?
I would be honored. Thank you very much.
It has been an absolute joy. We love your work. Love how it represents Canada and just the dignity in which and
I love
stuff
that I
you've
can
done.
be. I love that I can now say I've been vocal coached by David Bottrill.
You have, and I'm not. His lessons were great. The outcome is a whole other
He's
thing.
never going to come and look at me again. Is
Well,
he?
between that and Tundra, I think that you've used up all your Canadian shit. So
Can't say that word.
that's okay. I'll say it.
Thank you.
David P., take us home.
Guys, one of the things among many that I really like about David's work is his manipulation and use of 3 dimensions, not just the standard plane in front of the 2 speakers. Study his work and get a feel for how he gets front to rear, side to side, outside the speakers. I think it's fascinating. It's something I'm going to absorb into my skill set. See you guys next week.
See ya.